The war was finally over. After months of fire, smoke, and screaming skies, peace had returned to the galaxy. The great battle between the humans and the invading Dravak Empire had ended with a surprising victory, all thanks to a single human. Soldier named Ethan Gray. He wasn't a general. He wasn't rich. He was just a soldier with sharp eyes, a calm voice, and a brave heart. But it was his quick thinking during the final assault that saved the Allied alien forces from being wiped out. And now, he stood in front of a glowing alien throne, surrounded by tall warriors, watching him with cold eyes and strange smiles. Grand Commander of the Zilari Empire, a tall silver-skinned alien with 6 arms, stepped forward. His voice echoed like thunder. Human Ethan Gray, you have saved thousands. You have proven your strength, loyalty, and courage. For your service, you deserve more than medals. Today, we give you a living reward. Ethan blinked. A living reward? He didn't like the sound of that dot at the wave of the commander's hand. 2 guards came forward. Between them was a figure in chains. A woman. She had silver blue skin, long tangled hair, and sharp markings along her cheeks, her wrists, and ankles were bound in thick, glowing cuffs. A long chain connected them. Her robes were torn. She looked up with glowing eyes, not in anger, not in fear, but with tired emptiness. The hall fell silent. Ethan felt his chest tighten. The Grand Commander smiled. She was captured from the rebels, royal blood, a powerful race. A rare gift. She is yours now, human. The crowd of aliens clapped, but Ethan didn't move. His eyes stayed on the chained woman. Her lips were dry. Her shoulders shook. She was afraid, not of him, but of what he might become. What's her name? Ethan asked quietly. The commander looked amused. She was once called Vera. It doesn't matter anymore. Ethan stepped forward. He looked into Vera's eyes. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just stood still, as if already dead inside. Then Ethan did something no one expected. He looked back at the commander and said firmly, "Take off her chains." Gasps filled the hall. What? The commander's voice dropped. Ethan repeated, louder this time, "Take off her chains." The alien crowd murmured. Whispers floated in the air. Is he serious? He refuses the reward? Strange. Human. The commander narrowed his eyes. You are free to use her, soldier. No one will judge you. I'm not here to own anyone, Ethan said. I didn't fight this war to chain others. The guards hesitated. Ethan stepped closer to Vera, then slowly reached for the chains himself. I said, the commander growled. But before he could finish, Vera's knees gave out. She fell forward, but Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Her body was cold. She was shaking badly. And then, with a weak whisper only he could hear, she spoke. You're not like them. Her voice was soft. Her head rested on his shoulder. Ethan gently held her. The commander stared at him, silent. Ethan stood, carrying Vera in his arms. I'll take her, he said. But not as a slave. He turned and walked out of the hall, ignoring the angry whispers, the stares, the confusion. Behind him, the commander clenched his fists. The human will regret this. Outside, the alien sky burned with orange light. Ethan carried Vera past tall towers and ships returning from war. She didn't speak again. Her eyes slowly closed. He took her to his small guest room inside. The alien city's embassy. There was only one bed, some water, and a medical kit. He laid her down gently and began treating her bruises. Hours passed. She opened her eyes once, looked at him, and then slept again. Ethan sat beside her, silent. He had no idea what he had just started. All he knew was she didn't deserve chains, and he would make sure. She never wore them again. She woke up to warmth. For the first time in many months, Vera was not sleeping on cold stone or dirty floors. Her body still hurt. Her wrists still burned from the chains, but the blanket over her was soft. And she smelled something strange. Food, real food. She opened her eyes slowly. The room was quiet. A single lamp glowed in the corner. A human jacket was folded on a chair. And beside the bed, sleeping on the floor with his back against the wall, was him, Ethan Gray, the strange human who had refused to use her, who had carried her away from the hall like she mattered. She stared at him. Why? Why had he done that? Hours earlier, after she fainted in the throne room, Ethan had cleaned her wounds, wrapped her feet, and placed her on the bed without touching her skin more than needed. He didn't talk much, just worked in silence. He even turned around when changing her torn robe, leaving her a clean uniform and dignity. He didn't treat her like a reward. He treated her like a person. Now, as the sun rose outside the window, Vera whispered, "Are you awake?" Ethan opened one eye, then stretched. "Yeah, how do you feel?" She blinked. That was the first time someone had asked her that in a long, long time. "I don't know," she answered honestly. Ethan nodded. "I made some food. I don't know if it's your kind, but I figured you might be hungry." She looked at the tray beside the bed, soup, bread, and a fruit. Her hands trembled. She picked up the spoon like it was a weapon. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You could have taken me, like they wanted." Ethan sighed and sat in the chair. "Because I'm not like them." Vera stared at him, trying to read the truth in his eyes. So many aliens had worn fake kindness before hurting her, but this human. His gaze was tired, honest, real. Later that day, Vera took her first steps alone. She moved slowly, limping slightly. Ethan stayed close, but gave her space. He didn't force questions, but she spoke anyway. She told him little pieces, that she had once lived in a sky palace, that her people had been betrayed by another tribe, that she had been taken and sold in secret, her royal name erased, her voice silenced. "I was Varanathi of the Rosari bloodline," she whispered. Ethan looked up. "Rosari? That's a royal house, from the southern stars." She nodded once. "I'm the last." Then, she slowly lifted the collar of her uniform and showed him something glowing beneath. A thin, elegant tattoo with a symbol that looked like a crown of stars. It was real. She was royalty. Ethan was silent for a moment. "So, they didn't just give me a slave. They gave me a prisoner of royal blood." Vera nodded. "They thought I was broken, that I wouldn't speak again. Were they right?" He asked softly. Her voice was a whisper. "I don't know." That night, Vera had a nightmare. She cried out in her sleep, her hands clawing at invisible chains. Ethan rushed to her side, held her wrist gently. "You're safe," he said over and over. "You're not there anymore." She woke up shaking. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't push him away. Instead, she leaned against his chest just for a moment. "I had a sister," she whispered. "They killed her, right in front of me. I didn't scream, not once. If I had, they would have killed me too." Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't speak, but he placed his hand gently over hers. "You're safe now, Vera," he said again. But outside their small room, in the deep halls of the alien city, a shadow moved. Someone was watching, and someone was not happy that the humans still had the Rosari girl. The wind outside the alien city howled like a dying beast. Inside the small guest room, Ethan Gray stood at the window, holding a mug of cold tea. He hadn't slept, not really. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, Vera, the chained woman he had rescued, who wasn't just a slave, but a royal prisoner. She slept on the bed behind him, breathing softly, wrapped in a warm blanket. Her glow was faint now, like a dying star, but still beautiful, and still in danger, because Ethan had begun to notice things. It started with the silent clicks on the door at night. Once, maybe twice. He pretended not to hear. Then 2 days ago, he saw shadows outside the window that didn't match the light. Someone was watching them. He asked the guards, but they shrugged. No one's been here, they lied with stiff smiles. Vera noticed it too. Her voice was low one evening when she said, "They won't let me go that easily. They gave me to you as a joke, a test." "A test?" Ethan asked. She nodded. "They wanted to see if you were like them, if you'd break me too." The next morning, Ethan sharpened his old combat knife and cleaned his pulse rifle. He didn't want to fight, but he would, if it meant protecting her. That night, the door clicked again. This time, Ethan didn't stay in bed. He grabbed his rifle and moved silently. The hallway was empty, but the scent of burned metal lingered in the air. Someone tried to override the lock. He thought. Back inside, Vera sat up suddenly, eyes wide. "I saw him," she whispered. "In my dream. He's coming." "Who?" Ethan asked, stepping closer. She held her arms. "My uncle. He led the traitors who destroyed my family. If he finds out I'm alive." She didn't finish the sentence, but Ethan saw the fear in her glowing eyes. Later, Vera stood in front of a mirror. For the first time, her hair was clean, and she wore a fresh cloak Ethan had found for her. She still looked thin, fragile. But inside her, something had begun to wake up. She stared at her reflection and said, "They took everything from me. My name, my bloodline, my pride." Ethan walked up behind her. "Then take it back." She turned to him, surprised. He continued, "I don't care if you're royalty, or a farmer, or anything in between. But I know this, you're not anyone's slave." A soft smile touched her lips for the first time. But before she could speak, the lights flickered, then died. The room went dark. Ethan instantly reached for his weapon. Outside, footsteps echoed in the hallway, slow, steady, and many. He pulled Vera behind him and whispered, "Stay down." The door creaked. Someone had cut the power. Then, silence. Until a voice spoke from the other side of the door. A low, gravelly voice in a language Vera knew too well. "Princess Viranathi, come with us quietly, or the human dies." Vera froze. Ethan didn't. He kicked over a table, flipped the bed for cover, and raised his rifle. "You're going to have to try." The lock exploded inward. 3 tall alien hunters rushed in, armored, masked, armed with glowing blades. Ethan fired. One dropped. Vera ducked, hands over her ears as energy blasts lit the room. One hunter leapt toward Ethan, but before he could strike, Vera screamed. The sound wasn't just fear. It was power. The second attacker froze, staggered, then fell, blood dripping from his ears. Vera stood slowly, hands glowing with alien energy. Ethan looked back in shock. "You have powers?" She nodded slowly. "My people were warriors once. I forgot who I was, until now." The last attacker saw her and tried to run. Vera raised her hand. The door slammed shut on its own. Ethan lowered his weapon. She wasn't just some scared woman anymore. She was waking up. Later that night, the embassy security found the mess. They demanded answers. Ethan lied. "Self-defense," he said. "Thieves." The guards didn't believe him. But they didn't push because behind them, standing tall in a cloak of her ancestors, Vera's presence had changed. She was no longer a chained reward. She looked regal. But now, both she and Ethan knew one truth. This was just the beginning. The next morning, the embassy gates were shut. Guards stood in double rows. The city speakers buzzed with orders. Every human and alien inside the compound was told to stay inside. No one could leave. No one could hide. And the reason? Ethan Gray. Inside a quiet room, he stood with his arms behind his back, facing 3 alien generals. The air was cold, heavy, Vera sat behind him, dressed in the clean robes of her lost bloodline. Her chains were gone, but her freedom still hung by a thread. A general slammed a tablet on the desk. "You killed royal bounty hunters from the Rosen Syndicate. Do you know what that means, human?" Ethan didn't blink. "I protected someone under my care." "She is not under your care," the general shouted. "She is property given as reward." Ethan stepped forward. "Not anymore." Silence. Then the room trembled, not from anger, but from fear. Because in that moment, Ethan had done more than break tradition. He had broken the law. Outside the meeting chamber, alien diplomats whispered, "He refuses to return her. He's protecting her now." "Does he even know what she is?" Vera sat quietly, her hands folded. But her heart pounded. Every second Ethan spoke up for her. "Made him more of a target," she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan glanced back and smiled just a little. "Because no one else ever did." That afternoon, the decision came fast. The alien high court sent a message. Return the girl, or face exile. Ethan stood still for a long time after reading it. Then he packed his things, a small bag, some rations, an old pistol. Nothing more. He knocked on Vera's door. "We have to leave," he said. Vera looked up confused. "You're giving me up?" He shook his head. "No, I'm choosing you over everything else." They left just before sunset, slipping through the back gates using a stolen code. Ethan's contact from the local resistance, an old alien named Krell, helped them disappear. "Where will we go?" Vera asked as they rode a hover sled across the desert plains. Ethan looked at the setting sun. "Where no one owns anyone," he said. They stopped in a small village far from the city. A human-alien border town where no one asked questions. The homes were made of scrap and sand. People lived simply, but freely. Ethan traded his last credits for a room. It was tiny, but clean. There, something strange happened. Vera laughed. She watched children chase each other through the dust. Alien kids with glowing skin and human children with messy hair, laughing, playing, shouting together. "I forgot what joy looked like," she whispered. Ethan sat beside her. "You'll see it more now." She looked at him serious. "You gave up your life, for me." "I didn't," he said. "I gave up a life I didn't believe in, to protect what I do." But that night, as stars blinked above and wind shook their window, Vera couldn't sleep. She turned to Ethan, who sat by the window holding his old combat knife. "Are you scared?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Yes, not for me, for you." Vera walked to him slowly. She reached for his hand and held it. "You shouldn't be scared anymore," she whispered, "because now I choose you too." They sat in silence for a long while, but neither knew the message that was spreading across the stars. "Ethan Gray has kidnapped the last royal heir of Versari. He must be captured. The girl must be taken back. By force, if needed. In the shadows of the galaxy, ships began to move, and soon war would return, not for territory, not for power, but for her. The stars above the desert town were unusually quiet. Too quiet. Ethan Gray felt it before he saw it, a tension in the air, like a storm was coming. But it wasn't wind or sand he feared. It was hunters. Earlier that day, a stranger had come into town, tall, wrapped in robes, face hidden. He didn't speak. He didn't shop. He just stood in the corner of the village square, watching them. Inside the small clay room, Vera was trying to braid her hair. Her fingers still trembled from years of chains, but she was slowly learning freedom, even in small things. She looked up at Ethan and smiled gently. "You look worried." "I am," he said. "Someone new came to town, doesn't belong." "Do you think they're here for me?" "I know they are." That night, they locked the door. Ethan placed a chair beneath the handle and kept his knife nearby. But sleep didn't come. The town was silent again. Too silent. Then dash bang. The door shattered. Inward, 3 masked hunters rushed in, moving like shadows. Ethan rolled forward, pulling Vera behind a crate. His pistol fired once, twice, but they were fast. One of the attackers jumped onto the bed and sliced it in half with a glowing blade. Ethan threw a metal rod at the nearest figure and shouted, "Run, Vera, go now!" But she didn't run. She turned and raised her hands. Her palms glowed bright blue. The room shook. One hunter screamed, thrown back by invisible force. The second tried to strike Ethan, but was knocked sideways by a wave of energy. Vera was done running, after the dust. Settled, 2 hunters lay unconscious. The third escaped out the window, bleeding and vanishing into the dark. Ethan leaned against the wall, panting. A cut ran down his arm. His blood dripped onto the floor. "Ethan!" Vera rushed to him. "I'm fine," he muttered. "You're bleeding." He tried to joke. "It's just human juice. I'll refill later." But then his legs gave out. Vera caught him. Her hands shook. She patched him up as best she could, using old cloth and burning herbs from the village doctor. All the while, her eyes stayed on his face, pale, tired, brave. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why do you keep risking yourself for me?" Ethan's eyes opened halfway. "Because I made a choice. And I don't regret it. You could have handed me over. You could have been rich. A hero in their eyes." He looked at her, weak but smiling. "They gave me a slave. I found a soul." Her hands stopped. Her eyes filled with tears, but not from fear, from something else. She leaned closer and whispered, "I don't want freedom anymore." Ethan blinked. "What?" "I want you. I don't know what this feeling is. I don't understand it fully, but I know it's real." Her hand touched his, warm, gentle. "I choose you." Outside, the wounded hunter limped through the shadows, reaching a hidden communicator. His voice hissed into the device. "Target alive, both of them." The girl used ancient powers. "Orders?" A voice crackled back, sharp and cold. "Send backup. This time, we take the human alive. And the princess. In pieces if we must." Back in the room, Ethan slept under Vera's watchful eyes. She sat by the window, holding his knife, not because she was afraid, but because this time she would protect him. The sky broke open before dawn. It wasn't thunder. It was ships. Silent. Black warships slid through the early morning clouds like ghosts. No lights, no banners. Just quiet death moving through the air above the desert. War had returned, but this time, it wasn't for planets. It was for her. Vera saw them first. She was standing outside their room, fetching water from a rusted metal pump. When she looked up and her blood turned cold. The symbol on the ships, she knew it. "They found me," she whispered. Inside, Ethan was already awake. He'd felt it too. Something in his bones. A soldier's sixth sense. He checked the old rifle he kept by the bed, his movements sharp and calm. Vera rushed in. "They're here. Not bounty hunters this time, soldiers. Elite ones. How many? Too many." Ethan took a breath. "Then we'll make them regret coming." Within the hour, the town was on alert. A few locals offered to help Ethan. A former alien mechanic gave him old mines. A retired mercenary handed over a long-range cannon made from scrap and hope. Vera, meanwhile, stood at the edge of the town staring at the rising dust. The enemy was marching in. "They're not just coming for me," she said. "They're coming for you now, because you stood with me." Ethan walked up beside her. "Then let them come. I'd rather stand with you than bow to them." She turned to him. "What if we die here? Then we die with our heads held high." As the first wave of troops arrived at the village border, Vera stepped forward alone. She raised her voice loud and clear. "I am Vera Nathi, rightful heir of the Rosari bloodline. And I do not surrender." The lead alien commander stepped out. His armor was polished bone. His eyes were cold steel. "You were supposed to die a long time ago," he said. "I lived," Vera replied, "and I remembered who I am." They opened fire. Ethan pulled Vera back just in time as plasma bolts tore through the dirt. The battle began. The town lit up with explosions and smoke. Ethan fought like a ghost. Moving fast, silent, efficient. Every shot counted. Vera stood at the center of the storm, her hands glowing bright, sending shockwaves that tore machines apart and cracked. Enemy armor. She was a force of nature now. But the enemy was overwhelming. Ethan was hit, a blast to the leg. He dropped behind a fallen beam, gritting his teeth. Vera screamed his name and rushed to him. No, stay with me." He smiled through the pain. "Still here." She placed her hands on his chest, glowing with alien light, trying to heal. The energy flickered. But something strange happened. Ethan's wounds stopped bleeding. His breathing calmed. But the glow from her hands spread to him. Their bodies were connecting, not just skin to skin, but soul to soul. "What was that?" he whispered. Vera's eyes widened. "That was a bond." "What kind of bond?" Her voice shook. "The kind that only happens once, between life mates." The battle slowed as the second wave of enemies retreated. They had seen something they didn't expect. The lost princess had found her strength, and someone willing to die for her. In the silence after the smoke cleared, Ethan looked at Vera and said, "When this is over, if we survive, I want to make that bond real." Vera nodded slowly. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Then you better survive, human, because I'm not letting you go." But in the far sky, more ships arrived. And this time, they didn't come with blades or chains. They came with bombs. The sky was fire. Smoke curled through the burning village. The air was filled with falling ash. Homes collapsed. Children cried. And above it all, dark ships floated like silent judges ready to strike again. But they had made one mistake. They thought Vera would run. She didn't. She stood in the center of the ruined town. Dirt on her face, her cloak torn, her hands glowing like two stars. And beside her, wounded but still standing, Ethan Gray. His rifle was gone, his armor cracked. But his eyes never left hers. The loudspeaker from the enemy ship buzzed. "This is your final chance, Princess Vera. Surrender. The human will be spared." Vera raised her head, her voice strong. "He is mine. I don't belong to you, not anymore." She looked at Ethan and whispered just loud enough for him to hear. "And I don't belong to chains. I belong to you." She turned toward the enemy, lifted both hands, and screamed. But it wasn't fear. It was power. Her ancient bloodlines awakened. Energy burst from her body like a storm. It ripped through the ships overhead. The skies cracked open with light. One by one, the enemy vessels exploded. The final ship began to fall, burning, breaking until it crashed in the desert beyond. A ball of flame against the orange sky. And then silence. The war was over. Vera dropped to her knees, weak but alive. Ethan limped to her, dropped beside her, and caught her in his arms. They held each other as the sun began to rise again. Days passed. The village was rebuilding. Survivors worked together. No one cared who was alien or human anymore. They were just people. And then, under the shade of a broken tree with a cloth bandage still wrapped around his arm, Ethan knelt before Vera. He held out a simple ring. It wasn't gold. It wasn't royal. Just steel and wire he shaped with his own hands. "I don't have a kingdom," he said, "but I do have my heart. Will you marry me, Vera?" Tears filled her glowing eyes. She didn't say a word. She just pulled him up and kissed him. Weeks later, a quiet ceremony was held in the rebuilt village. No thrones. No crowds. Just them. The lost princess, the unwanted soldier, the slave and the reward, who became life mates. Vera wore white robes gifted by the alien children she once smiled at. Ethan wore a patched uniform, cleaned and pressed. They said no. Gran vows. Just 4 simple words. I'm finally, truly free. And as they kissed beneath the starlight, the wind carried the last words of the old war far away. Now there was only peace, and a love stronger than chains.